Good morning and welcome to our webinar on evaluations, how to improve the effectiveness of your board. Before we start the actual webinar, a bit of practical information. Our webinar will last for approximately 45 minutes. During the webinar, you can participate in a number of polls that we will organize, questions that we will ask you. What you need to do is on the right top-hand side of your screen, you see a red arrow. If you click on that arrow, a control panel will drop down where you have the possibility to ask questions. Please write the questions, and at the end of our webinar we have a debate session where we respond to your questions. This webinar will also be recorded and will be available on GUBERNA's website later on for those that would like to listen to it again or that were not able to participate in the webinar. I'm very pleased to welcome here today Françoise Roels, Executive Director, Secretary General and Group Counsel of Cofinimmo, and Jan Serfontein, Chairman of the Board of Argenta Bank and Insurance Group. They are both very experienced in the matter of board evaluation and will share with you some of their experiences and some of their thinking on the topic. But let me start with asking you a question. What we would like is to understand whether you have any personal experience with a board evaluation exercise. So if you could please respond yes or no, whether you have any experience with personal experience with a board evaluation exercise, either as a board member, as a consultant, as a Secretary General, in whatever role. Do you have experience with a board evaluation exercise? We're currently recording your answers, and in a moment we should be able to see the results of the poll. Okay, so just a little less than half of you indeed have experience with an exercise, and a small majority of you have not had an exercise. So we hope that our webinar today will give you some insight into what a board evaluation exercise is, what it can do for your board, and how you should go about doing a board evaluation exercise. But let's maybe start by some definitions. What is a board evaluation? And it is an exercise that provides you with insight to improve the added value of your board. And this is a very important first statement, which means that the purpose of any board evaluation exercise is to identify opportunities to improve the performance of your board, the way your board provides added value to your enterprise, to your organization. What this exercise does is it examines the effectiveness of your board of directors. It does so systematically. There's a methodology, there are best practices to go about doing a board evaluation exercise, and you need to do it in a timely manner, not necessarily every 6 months or maybe not even every year, but it needs to be done on a regular basis, and we'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. So why should you do a board evaluation? Increasingly, codes, legislation, regulation requires companies, certainly listed companies, to do board evaluation exercises. But that's not the only reason, and very often not the main reason for doing it. The main reason to do a board evaluation is a continuous improvement best practice. It helps you to do better. It helps you to make use of the full potential of your board of directors. It helps you to anticipate some of the challenges, some of the threats that you may be facing in your organization, to detect potential problems that might exist, that might emerge, to tackle them early, to anticipate them before they cause you any real problems. Continuous improvement. There's always ways to learn from best practices, from other organizations, or just from reflecting yourself on how you do things and how you could do them better. And to reorient the composition of your board. when your environment changes, when your strategy changes, when your organization changes, sometimes you need to change the composition of your board to address some of the issues that result as a result of those changes. And what we've done for you here is we have listed 7 steps that we believe are important to address when you start doing a board evaluation. First question to ask yourself is, what are your objectives? What are you trying to achieve? Are there any specific objectives, or is it an overall board evaluation that just wants to address the general performance of your board? What is the scope of your evaluation? Is it your board? Is it your board and your committees? Will you involve management? Will you involve shareholders in the evaluation? Questions to ask about the scope of the evaluation. What exactly do you want to evaluate? Are there certain domains that you've been challenged with, that have caused concerns, and that you want to dive into in more detail? Who will take part in the exercise? What method will you use? We'll talk about questionnaires, we'll talk about interviews. There's different methods that you can use. You can use people from within your organization. You can use external help to go through an evaluation. And what will we do with the result? It's clear that if you write a good report and then don't do anything with it, that no change will result. So what will we do with the results? How will we present them? How will we develop actions to address the issues that we have identified? So this was just a brief introduction about what board evaluation is. Before we ask our speakers to share with you some of their experiences, just another polling question. Would you prefer an internal exercise where you use only people from within your board, from within your own organization to go through the board evaluation exercise, or would you prefer to use external help to do the board evaluation? So if you could just indicate your preference, and then in a minute we'll show you the results again, and then we'll go on with our presentation. Just a little more time to allow everybody to respond to the question, and then we will show the results. Okay, so it's about half-half. 52% of you say that you would prefer an internal exercise, and 48% of you say that you would prefer to use someone external to your organization to help you in the exercise. Well, we're lucky today because we've got 2 experts around the table that have experience with both. So they'll share their experiences with you, and we'll hear from them how they've gone about their board evaluation and what their experiences are. So I would like to ask Jan to first share his experiences with us.
Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gents. There is no doubt that in the recent years the subject has gained traction, and a large number of companies have engaged in board evaluation exercises. Also, academic and other research on the subject has been impressive. I would like to say a couple of words about the pros and cons of a board evaluation, and I'll do that not from a very theoretical point of view, such as why is a board evaluation important, how critical board effectiveness can be for the company's well-being, how functional a board can be, and as the case might be, how dysfunctional a board can be. I think you are all well aware of that. But I would like to add some thoughts and reflections to the topic from my own experience. First, we should be aware that a board evaluation is always very challenging. It is a challenging exercise for board members. Board members, as you know, usually are not 20 or 30 somethings freshly graduated from college or university, and with a great appetite for whatever feedback they might get. Usually board members are seasoned business people, consultants, lawyers, auditors, who have made a lot of evaluations of other people, but in the more recent years usually haven't been evaluated themselves very often. The first thing I think you should do to tackle this sense of challenge is to talk to your board. And by you, I mean the one who's taking the initiative, be it the chairman of the board or the nomination committee. You should talk to the board to understand the reasons why they might be in favor or not of a board evaluation. You will understand that the directors sometimes personally may feel very uncomfortable with such an exercise. They might consider engaging in a board evaluation as a sign that the board lacks trust or confidence in the members, in the directors, in the CEO, in the company's performance. The board even might have the feeling that it lacks itself the skills and expertise to undertake effective evaluations. The feeling might be that the board is dysfunctional. The feeling might be that someone in the board is very dominating. It might be the CEO, it might be the chairman, it might be the founder, and that such a position is a concern for the directors in expressing their views on the issues that an evaluation may raise. Also, previous board evaluation might have been ineffective. So discussing the reasons to engage or not to engage in an evaluation as a starting point is very much important, I think. What you also should do is avoid a blind date. I mean by that, do not engage in a process that hasn't been discussed with the board before, topics, questions, possible outcomes. The last thing you might consider, and I come back to that within a few minutes, is using an external independent facilitator for the board evaluation. If you prepare well and carefully, you might have better chance to reach a successful evaluation. And by that I mean that you clearly define purpose, objective, process, and that you maintain confidentiality at all time, that you are aware that the chairman has to play a key role in the exercise, and that regular exercises are giving more confidence than one-offs. Compare it to your visit to a dentist. If you make a regular checkup, you take x-rays, you might discover something that needs to be restored. It will be done in due time. But if you only occasionally visit a dentist, it might appear as really important and big. The outcome is highly unpredictable. So a safe rule for board evaluations is to do it on a regular basis. Whatever GUBERNA meeting, course or webinar you might have attended before, you will be familiar with the idea that no two boards are the same. And the same goes for board assessment process. There is no global approach. There is no an all-encompassing guideline for running a board evaluation, and this lack of guidelines provides an opportunity and a challenge. You can customize your assessment according to the needs of the board culture. The possible challenge, of course, is to stay away from check-the-box exercises. Designing the evaluation process, and that is the core of my comment, is that it is overall important to think about the design of the process before entering into it. I will say a few words about the importance of it before I will tackle some of the most important questions in the design of a board evaluation. Designing means defining your objective. It might be that you are in a position where board evaluations are mandatory by law, are best practice, are obliged by the regulatory environment. If you engage in a board evaluation simply to comply with those rules, with those listing rules, with those best practices, just say it. There's nothing wrong with compliance, but if your ambition is to comply, just comply. If there are specific areas that require your close attention, try to find out, do you have the feeling that the risk management, that the financial reporting in your board is more than okay, that there is a CEO succession issue or that there is a commercial reporting issue? Try to find out what specific areas require specific attention. Are there concerns within the board about its own functioning? What about the board dynamics? Try to have an understanding of the board dynamics before. What would be considered as a successful outcome? Again, are you looking for some general stimulating ideas, or are you trying to cure a specific issues? Then, are there specific sensitivities? Are there issues or questions you always like to raise but never dare to ask? You should be aware of that, you as the chairman who takes the initiative, but also among the directors taking part in the exercise. The second issue is to determine the scope. You can have a board evaluation limited to the effectiveness of the board, but you can include the committees, and you can also include individual performance peer review. You need, before you engage in the exercise, determine the scope. Three specific questions in the design of the board evaluations are the first one, how you would like the evaluation to be conducted. The second, would you or would you not include assistance by a third party? And the third one, would you or would you not include peer review? With respect to the first one, I can be, I think, very brief. You can do it in oral discussions, which allow the directors to express concerns and raise issues in a more detailed and with more nuance than you can do it in a written survey. Questionnaires are documentation that will stay with the company. They are a written record, which is fine if you like it, but you should avoid if you think you should avoid. Regulators will have access to the questionnaires, to the results, and so on. It is a question you have to ask. The second important design issue, in my view, is the question whether or not to include a third-party service provider. And I like to start with a very provocative statement by Richard Leblanc, who is I think, a seasoned academic in corporate governance, who is the editor of an important handbook on corporate governance, a 600 or 700 pager, which has been edited last year. And in his view, self-assessments by boards are akin to university students attending the university of their choice and marking their own exams. They constitute a conflict of interest. And this Mr. Leblanc goes on by stating that an even greater conflict of interest will occur where management, such as the general counsel or company secretary, participates in or facilitates board requirement and assessment. Management, according to Richard Leblanc, is a accountable to the board and should not be involved in managing the information from any recruitment or assessment process. So far, the provocation, and so far the usual trick. If you would like to make a provocation, find someone you can quote on. So, what is my own view on third-party involvement in board evaluation? I think, generally speaking, there is no doubt that external advisors can bring objectivity to a process. It is the same with audit. You can organize internal audits, but usually they will be complemented or assessed by an external auditor. So at different levels, objectivity can be brought to the process by external third-party providers. You can imagine the following situation, not very uncommon, of a chairman conducting a board evaluation through individual conversations with each director, in which the chairman reviews the director's performance and in which he solicits input on his own performance and any other issues the director might wish to raise. Human nature being what it is, in my view, highly unlikely that particularly sensitive issues will get full airing in this way. And those particularly sensitive issues are exactly the ones that are the most important to address in a board evaluation. The chairman himself or herself is directly responsible for shaping the board culture, for the board dynamics, for organizing the board and the practice of it. So the feedback he will get on the board will necessarily be feedback on his own work, and therefore will be highly dependent on the relationship the chairman has with each individual board member, and this relationship naturally will vary from director to director. So in my view, acting in this way is a certain, maybe a huge risk of bias as well with respect to the input as to the output. 1 minute, I do understand is what is left to me. Third parties, facilitators can be helpful in the second phase also, the exercise, which is the benchmarking of the results. Every board evaluation makes directors curious with respect to the question, where are we? Are we a 6, 7, or 8 out of 10 board? Are we a good board? Are we an excellent board? Independent facilitators can compare the board evaluation findings with either corporate governance standards or practices in comparable organizations. And that again would add to the value of the exercise. Including third-party facilitators usually will not be done every year, even if it is recommended that board evaluations occur every year. In such a regime, usually the practice is that for external evaluations, that they are conducted every second or third year, and in the meanwhile, internal exercises will be done. So the last issue on my list in the design phase of the board evaluation is the question whether or not we should include peer review of individual directors. That is a question the board also has to raise. It may lead to greater accountability and to help to identify underperforming directors, but it is, as you can easily understand, not without risk. Madam Chairman, that would be my comments with respect to board.
Jan, thank you very much for those insights, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a bit more when we discuss the questions that participants to this webinar are sending us or will be sending us. Before I ask Françoise to share her views with us, just another question. We talked about different methods for board evaluation exercises, and we've talked about questionnaires, about interviews. Sometimes meetings are being observed as part of a board evaluation exercise. Could you indicate for us what would be your preferred method? And please note that different responses are possible. If you feel that a combination of those methods or all of them are what you would prefer for a board evaluation exercise, please indicate so. So what is your preferred method for a board evaluation exercise? Is it questionnaires, written form? Is it interviews, oral method where you have the possibility to dive deeper into the topic? Or is it observation of board and or committee meetings? So if you could finalize your response, then we'll show you in a moment what the responses of all the participants are, and then we'll ask Françoise to share her views with us. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting observation, and I'm sure we'll reflect on this and share our views on this later on. So 91% of you say that you want to use interviews in a board evaluation exercise, 78% would like to use questionnaires, and 66% think that observation of meetings is an interesting method to be used in board evaluation exercises. That's a very interesting response, and we'll think about that and give you our views on the topic later on. But before we do that, I'm going to ask Françoise Roels to share her experience, her wide experience with board evaluation exercises with us.
Good morning to the audience. First of all, I would like to pick up what Jan said. We have no two boards are the same. So what I would like to do with you is share how we at Cofinimo have an experience of conducting the exercises within our board. But before entering into the practical side of it, I think it's important that we are aware of the company profile and also its corporate governance model. First of all, Cofinimo is a Belgian regulated investment company. It has thus, it's listed on the stock exchange. It has a tax transparent status in 3 countries. The head office is in Belgium, but we have activities in 4 countries. And we are heavily regulated and controlled by the FSMA. Despite the fact that we are an investment company, we have a very operational activity. So we have a team now of more than 135 people now. So that operational aspect is also important. As far as our corporate governance is concerned, we have and we will have a board of 12 members with 4 executives and 8 independent directors. So what is specific for us is that the management company is part of the board. That is a specific issue. Also, we have no reference shareholder, so there is quite a lot of focus on our board. What is our practice at Cofinimo with respect to board evaluation? Well, we've started to do board evaluations long before the Code of Conduct, the Code of Corporate Governance in 2004. So we started, I have some files that show that we started already in 2000 and 2002. Our exercise is conducted every 2 years, but we also have ad hoc evaluations. For example, when we have had a strategic board meeting, that lasted 1 day, for example. Afterwards, we did an ad hoc evaluation on the exercise, which was also very helpful. And as far as the methodology is concerned, we opt for an alternate methods in the sense that we do internal evaluations, then followed by external evaluations a couple of years later. I think we want absolutely to avoid the tick the box attitude, and we think alternating the exercise is very useful. Now, in Cofinimo, we have this chance, in fact, that all our board members stand behind the exercise. So you could say we have a very efficient board with an open, transparent, and constructive attitude. But we still believe that it is important to move from good, very good, to excellence. And it's important to have, we have all very competent people around the table, but we want to be sure that this group of competent people is also competent. We want a competent group of competent people. Also, the exercise is forward-looking. We have already talked about the increase of efficiency and effectiveness, that's clear, but we also think that this exercise enhances the trust relationship between the members and reinforces our values. And also it helps to detect gaps in board competencies. An important remark I can also make is that we use the exercise and the results of the exercise of a board evaluation when we are doing board inductions, when we have new members. We share the results of previous exercises with them. It has two advantages. They learn a little bit more about the culture of the company, but also it shows that it is important for us to have an open attitude, and that helps very much. Now, Jan already talked about the fact that to do internal versus external evaluations, the drivers to choose or to opt between the two methods are, from the first side, costs, but still, I think it's not, of course, not that expensive to do it with an external provider. Sometimes also the time and the effort that has to be put in the exercise may lead to outsource it, but there also, do not forget that if you outsource it, you have to accompany the external provider. You have to also learn and lead. There is a lead time in order to share the culture and the way the board functions. So that takes also time. Elements like trust, accountability, the level of team cohesion have already been explained, so I'm not going to dig into that further on. But really the prerequisites for an internal exercise are the open culture. Also the fact that you need to have available personnel or persons to accompany the exercise, and that you avoid a tick the box attitude. If it becomes too automatic by repeating the exercise internally, you might have situations where people don't even think further on the exercise. So those are really prerequisites to continue to do internal board evaluations. Now, how do we proceed at Cofinimo on the exercise itself? Inge talked about the 7 steps. First, of course, the definition of the scope and the topics and the process. We base ourselves on the history and the experience, what happened in the boards, to define this specifically. So when we go up to a questionnaire, because that's what we definitely always use a written questionnaire to support the exercise, we make sure that this questionnaire gets clear statements that can really focus the board members on the issue for which we will ask them their input. Of course, questionnaires are one side, but we always use one-to-one interviews also. And the reason is very simple, because on the one-to-one interviews you can very ask open questions. We also notice that there is a difference between what is written and what is said. There is the body language that is explicitly very, very important, so that nuances can be brought upon the answers of the questionnaire. Then we go, of course, we are in the process of analyzing the results. And when we analyze the results, it's really important to put everything into perspective. And that also, the internal exercise can help. Because an external exercise might lead to statements that are perhaps a bit too strong. So the nuance that an internal person can bring to the exercise is rather important. Then, of course, we have the analysis of the results that will lead to a formulation of recommendations, a definition of an action plan, and a follow-up, which we always share with the board. That is really a board exercise. As far as the persons involved are concerned, we have different or I would say persons and groups in the company that are involved. We also have different roles. First of all, in our company, it's the Secretary General is preparing the exercise. So preparing the questionnaires, reviewing the inputs, drafting the action plans. So it's a preparation role. This preparation is checked by the president, is reviewed, is validated, and the president, of course, the chairman, has the lead of the exercise. As such, he is the one who is a driver and the driver of the exercise. But every preparation is then discussed in our corporate governance committee, discussed and recommendations are formulated. They also decide on the process and on the questions itself. So there the decision is taken in the committee itself. Action points and the discussion on the outcome of the exercise is discussed and validated in the board. So each entity has its own role to play. What the scope is concerned, I think boards, the committees, the relationship between the board and the committees, that's all very standard practice as far as the scope is concerned. What is typical with us in Cofinimo is that we do not do an individual performance review during the evaluation process itself. This is done at the moment there is a renewal of the mandate. It's not part of the exercise itself. Also, the performance of the management committee. Remember, I said that the management committee members are also board members. So this performance is not part of the exercise. It is done, of course, annually, but in a specific evaluation process at the beginning of the year. So it's not part of the real total board evaluation. Also, the relationship with the shareholders is done within the board on a regular basis and is not part of this evaluation as such. As far as the topics are concerned, those are, as you can see on the slide, the very classic subjects are tackled: the composition, the process, the performance. You can also see that remuneration is part of the review, and we ask the opinion of our board members on that. The board decision-making process and risk management, there we see that is very important that the risk appetite, that there is an alignment between the board members. So that is a specific issue that we focus on regularly, that everybody is aligned on that. Then the board competences, attitudes, and the board relationship. On this slide, you see a practical example of the questionnaire we ask. What you do not see is that we also ask to next to the clear statements, we have a score from 1 to 5, and we ask 2 questions. Is the statement correct? And then there is a score that is given from 1 to 5. And is this question important? So those are questions we ask. And we also always leave room for comments. That is, we have the closed-end questions on the list, followed by open-ended comments that can be made in order to put the nuances, to clarify further, and to quantify the exercise as such. As far as the actions are concerned, we have, I would say, 3 categories. We have the points to leverage on. So those results that we have stemming from the interviews and the questionnaire that are rather positive. So that is the points which we are going to leverage on. We don't have to forget the positive aspects of our board. We have, of course, the point to tackle, where it is very clear that there is an issue that we should define actions for. And then we have the points to clarify. Those are the points where some of the board members think there is no issue, others think there is an issue. This means that something has to be done to clarify the issue as such. And we also take into account, as I said, there is the verbatim in the one-to-one results to clarify the actions a little bit further. As a takeaway, and I think I have as last slide, some practical points I would like to share with you. The classic sentence of garbage in, garbage out also, of course, counts for your questionnaire. If you do not put the questions clearly, you won't have the correct answers to define your action points on, so that is very important. I think it's important also to have a balance between closed statements and open-ended questions. So leave enough room for comments, because the statements can be quantified and qualified. Confidentiality, what would in our company, the answers that on the questionnaires are really, the board members put their names on the answers. So we have a very open experience with that. So confidentiality, as long as we do not go out of the board, the confidentiality is not really an issue. But what is very important is the review and the review of the action points, because often this exercise is used as a kind of a catharsis, and afterwards nothing is done. So it's important that you follow up the action points on a regular basis and you measure progress. So that is something I would like to give you also away with this exercise. Thank you very much.
Françoise, thank you very much for sharing your experiences with us. What we'll do now is give the possibility to participants of the webinar, if you haven't already done so, to send us your questions, and we'll ask our speakers to respond to the different questions. I'd maybe like to start with following up on our last polling question, where we asked what method you thought was preferable. And I don't know, Jan and Françoise, what you thought, but I was quite surprised by the 66% of people that said they would find it interesting to observe boards. Now, I completely share that view, but I know that in practice it doesn't happen very often, and there seems to be a sort of reluctance to do so. So maybe to start with you, Jan, do you agree with me, and why do you think that is, and what's your experience?
I definitely agree with the observation that it is quite uncommon to have this kind of board evaluation. So by adding third-party observers to the board meetings. I know that more recently it has been done in the banking industry by the regulator. In fact, the ECB has taken the view that for having a better understanding of how boards are working, they should really attend board meetings. But that is sector specific. In general, my last remark would be that if you invite third-party facilitators to an observation, they have a totally different role. Usually, facilitators, when they are engaged in questionnaires or interviews, they don't express their own opinion on the board's performance. They gather information, they provide you with feedback, also with benchmarking, but they do not express their own opinion on the board's effectiveness. In an observation role, they do express, or they will express, their own opinion on the board effectiveness, which is a totally different exercise.
Thank you, Jan. Françoise, anything you want to add?
Yes, I think it's the board's evaluation. You evaluate a board over a year or 2 years. If you ask people to attend a specific board meeting, you get a photo. this person will get a photo of a specific meeting. I think the board action is a film and not a photo, so a photograph. So I think you cannot invite people during the whole year. I mean, that's not possible. They might catch some elements, but they won't have the complete picture. So I would say I'm not sure it will add a lot.
Okay. I think the views are clear and they reflect what we see in practice. It might be interesting in some circumstances, but it's certainly should not be the single method or probably a major part of the exercise, which needs to be a bit more nuanced and a bit more broad than just observing how the board or a committee functions at a specific point in time. Another question you asked us is, what do we do if we know that there are very specific issues, or if we're faced with a board that is simply dysfunctional? How does that impact? And I sincerely hope that you're not talking from personal experience, but you can provide us with your insight on what you would do if you were faced with a situation like that.
Yeah, in the let's hope more exceptional case where a board is completely dysfunctional, I don't think I would engage in a board evaluation. I think if it is clear from the outset that the board is dysfunctional, you should tackle this situation not by asking questions on the board members, what do you think about the level of board's effectiveness? So my advice would be, do not engage in a board evaluation in a situation where the board is clearly dysfunctional.
I fully share Jan's views. I think if the board is really dysfunctional, it might be very difficult to conduct the exercise because the answers will be perhaps difficult to formulate. So I totally agree with that.
Another question you've asked us is whether we have any experience with board evaluations in a not-for-profit or governmental context, where maybe board members are assigned by political parties. Any comments? Any views?
I'm sorry, but I don't have any experience in this environment. More generally, we have boards where directors are appointed because they are representing someone, be it shareholder or public authority and so forth. That is a more complex situation, since the selection of the specific director representing someone usually didn't go according to the process you would expect for appointing directors. And in reviews, it might come up as an issue that someone is a member of the board without having all qualifications to be there.
I think the fact how you are getting appointed should, I'm saying should not influence the way you act as a board member. So I think as a board member, you are there to help, to give your experience, to help further on the company to grow and to function well. So I would say it should not be a different approach. That's, I think, how I see it.
Okay, thank you very much, Françoise. Françoise, another question that has come up and that I think I would like to ask you. What would you do if you were in a situation where your chair was not performing well?
Well, I must confess also, as Jan, I do not have any experience with this issue, and I'm very lucky about that, because I think that is a very difficult question, especially in a company where you do not have a reference shareholder. So it's the board that is really leading the process. And frankly, I'm very happy that I do not have any experience with that point in my particular company. It would be difficult to tackle. I think if you have a reference shareholder, things might be easier.
In our situation, the board evaluation process has been run by the nomination committee, and since, as a rule, the chairman of the nomination committee is different from the chairman of the board, at least in this respect, there is openness for discussion with the chairman of the nomination committee about the performance of the chairman, which is part of the exercise anyhow.
Thank you very much. And another question. We've talked about who the different parties are that intervene in a board evaluation and how that might differ in different situations. But who ultimately is responsible for board evaluation, in your view? Jan?
Well, according to banking law, it is the nomination committee that is ultimately responsible for the board evaluation, but that is a legal requirement. In my view, I think the chairman should be pivotal in such an exercise for quite obvious reasons.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for those insights, although we probably could spend quite a bit more time, and I know some of you have asked us questions that we've not been able to respond to within the time frame allocated to us. We've already passed the time that we set out to spend on our webinar. So what I would like to do is conclude with a couple of comments to round off this webinar. What are the things that you should retain from this webinar, and what is important when you think about proceeding with a board evaluation? First of all, before the evaluation exercise, you can find in the slides of our webinar the 7 questions that you should ask before you start. And it's important to develop a plan and share it with all the participants, with all the board members, with all the participants in the evaluation process. During the evaluation exercise, it's important that everyone participates actively in the process, and the chair has an important role there to make sure that that happens. Openness, trust, and confidentiality are conditions that need to be in place to be able to go through a good board evaluation. And after the evaluation exercise, it's important to present the report to the entire board of directors, to develop an action plan, and to follow up that it's being implemented. And you should keep in mind that the ultimate goal of a board evaluation exercise is to optimize the added value of your board of directors. This is the end of our webinar on board evaluation. If you would like to know something more about it, we've included in the materials of our webinar some handouts. GUBERNA has a brochure that provides you with more insight and can provide you with services to our members with respect to board evaluation. And there are a number of documents that we've added, surveys, reports, that provide you with additional insights if you want to read up on the matter. As we said previously, this webinar is being recorded and will soon be available on our website, and all of the participants to this webinar will receive a link to where they will be able to view it. We will also ask you to evaluate how you experienced this webinar, because we'd like to understand what you like and what you don't like, because we also like continuous improvement. So we'd like to do even better in the future. So thank you very much for being with us today. We wish you a good day and look forward to connecting with you again on one of our future webinars.